Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the lecture on importance of the texture. We have been given some importance there, but now in detail, a little bit detail we will be give why soil texture is important in ecology, biology, agriculture, forestry, different disciplines from their own point of view. This is important. Soil texture controls many physical, biological, and chemical properties. We have been discussing their macro, micro pores and three types of soil, their elasticity, plasticity, coherence, compactness. So all these things they play role now in relation to the soil organism, in relation to the plants, in relation to the microbe. So this first thing is effect on root penetration. After germination, root has to penetrate into the soil. So root penetrates easily into loose textured, coarse, sandy soil because pores are available. It is porous. Pores available, easily it can go. But it finds difficulty in penetrating fine textured clay or silty soil. But roots cannot penetrate deep into a clay soil. Root penetration is moderate in loamy soil. Loam, since has a moderate character, so there's a moderate penetration. Due to variation, why this is possible? Due to variation in the pore sizes, pore spaces, soil compactness, relative proportion of micro and macro pores. Second aspect is the effect on infiltration of water. Infiltration means movement of water into the soil, penetration of water into the soil. So water infiltrates quickly in sandy soil, slowly in clay soil, and moderately in loamy soil. If you just throw a glass of water in a sandy soil, it would go deep, it would be lost. But in clay soil, it would remain there. Why this happens? Because of variation in the soil pore spaces, soil pore size, soil compactness, relative proportion of micro and macro pores. I would not explain these things here again. I have already explained those under each category of soil. But pore size, pore space, compactness, relative proportion of micro or macro pore, you can easily now understand what would be the situation in sandy soil, what could be in the clay soil, and what would happen in a loamy soil. Same picture again, macro, micro. Effect on rate of movement. This is another important feature of soil, of water. If water enters the soil, it has to move vertically down or laterally, horizontally. So rate of water movement is directly proportional to the soil texture. Larger the pore size, higher will be the percentage of macropores, greater will be the movement of water in the soil. Finer the pore size, higher will be the percentage of micropores, therefore lesser will be the movement of the water in the soil. Runoff water, Chiupupi the Pasana Tuishi, sand, almost no runoff. Whatever you throw water, unless until sand is saturated, it won't give you any water to move, to flow away. But on a clay soil, because it's a tough soil, the water would remain there and flow up. It would not enter into the soil. Less available in the loamy soil. Again, if you have an experience, you just irrigate the loamy soil, and after 10, 15 or 1 hour, you just dig it out. The surface would be wet and the below the surface there would be a dry, as if it has not received anything. So no water has been received by it. Clay soil restrict water movement because of high percentage of micropores. Same thing as I have been discussing there. Strong cohesive adhesive forces between the water and the soil particles. Cohesive forces, that is a force between two water molecules. Cohesive is there. Adhesive, the adhesion of the water with the soil particles. So more particles are there, more cohesive forces are there because of the narrower capillaries. So water stays there. Swelling of particles upon wetting further narrows these pore spaces. When our clay soil gets wet, it further narrow down the channels, so further blockage occurs. Effect on water holding capacity. Every soil has its own water holding capacity. This water holding capacity, again, water holding capacity is defined as the retention of the water against the gravitational pull, gravitational force. Gravity would pull down the water, but water may not move in a clayey soil, it would move easily in a sandy soil. Because every soil particle, irrespective of its size, it has a film of water, a layer of water. And then the gaps, the pore size, that is the pore size, that so two places are there around the particle and the pore size. So now imagine what would be clay soil has a high water holding capacity because there are more spaces, more films of water, and blockage of water to move down. Sandy soil may definitely particles, they are of larger size, pore spaces of larger size, lesser surface area is available, so water held around the particles compared to the clay is less. There are two attractive forces controlling the availability of water in soils: cohesive or cohesion. Cohesive forces are cohesion. Water molecules are attracted to each other by cohesive chemical bonds. Water is a molecule that has a positive charge and a negative charge. These positive and negative, uh, these positive and charges are like the positive and the negative terminals of battery, but without flow of current. They are charged, so when they are charged, they would attract each other. These charges in molecule attract each other. This attraction force, is known as cohesion or cohesive force. So this force is very high in clay soils. This is one diagram I have drawn from some book. So you can see adhesive forces, the green one is the molecules or particles, and this blue one is the cohesive forces among them. This bluish color, brinjal color, that is soil particles, so adhesive forces are there. So depending upon this situation, adhesive, cohesive forces, water would be either retained or water would be moving down depending upon the size of the particle, depending upon the pore space. This is another example to explain it. Adhesive forces or adhesions. Water molecule is attracted to soil particles. This attraction force is called adhesive or adhesion forces, which is much stronger than the cohesive. You can see this blue one is the water and this brown one is the soil particles. So this force between this brown and blue, F and blue, is adhesion. Between two molecules, it is cohesive forces. So these two forces, they keep the water capacity or holding water capability. Every soil particles, irrespective of its size, has a uniform film of water around it. This is further explanation of the previous slide, that soil particle is there, and this blue line, whether small particle, large particle, so it has a uniform size. Thus, higher the number of particles, or say greater surface area, higher will be the retention of the water. Higher the interparticular spaces, the pore spaces, higher will be the amount of water held. So always remember that this micro macro, that's the playing the game there. Why clay soils hold more water than the sandy soils? Because clay has greater surface area due to fine particles, higher percentage of micropores are there, more sites are available for moisture retention, fine capillaries have greater cohesive forces and adhesive forces. These are the reasons that the clay holds more water. It would not allow the water to lose, to evaporate or move down. It would retain it. Sandy soils behave the opposite, because sandy soil is a coarse soil. The loss of water in dry condition is rapid in coarse textured soil than in the clay soil. Sandy soils have high percentage of macropores and because of macro size particles. Therefore, loss of water by draining down, or gravitational force becomes more powerful. It drains the water. Such soils have poor cohesive adhesive forces. So water is not retained because the forces which retain the water, they also are poor because of the macro size particle or macro pores. Why water holding capacity of clay soil have some disadvantages? In the previous lecture, I said that some disadvantages are there because more water is present. Then this is not good for the agriculture, for the plants, for the microbe. So water is held mostly in the upper layers, which is subject to quick drying. One of the disadvantages that water does not move through the profile. In a loamy soil, sandy soil, water from the top slowly, gradually moves down, and ultimately it may join the groundwater table if more water is available, irrigating or wetting the whole profile. But in this case, water does not move easily. It retains on the surface, or because of this low movement, it provides facility for the run of water, that ऊपर से पानी बह जाता है. Due to poor infiltration of the water flows as a runoff. Clay soil. Upper surface of clay soils are dry, but lower layers are absolutely dry. Retards root growth, restricts seedlings to the upper layers, which are subject to drying. This is, if you can observe somewhere, in some of the areas we have a hard clay layer below the surface, soil surface. Plants penetrate to that area. When they reach to that hard clay pan, then they cannot penetrate so they become shallow. Wind, water, they would damage this. They would be damaged with the wind, rooted away, blown away. Due to poor aeration, roots become shallow and surface feeders which are susceptible to drought. So, again, shallow root system is there because they cannot penetrate, they cannot reach to the deeper layers. Therefore, they become drought prone. Constant wet conditions may promote damping of diseases and fungi. So whenever conditions are damp in the soil, again you could see that the farmers, they do not irrigate or saturate or keep this field saturated because they know that wilting occurs. To give you an example, this is a common example. If you belong to a village farming community, agriculture community, when there are rains in the uh, rainy seasons and the drainage is not proper and the water stays in the fields, the plant become yellow, wilting occurs, death occurs because water is there, no oxygen is there, dumping of diseases are there. Effect on soil aeration. Now this is another. I said no oxygen is there. That's the now. This is the point that pore spaces between particles are either filled with air or water. सॉइल में जितने भी सुराख हैं छोटे बड़े दो चीज़ें हो सकती हैं उसमें, या तो पानी होगा या हवा होगा, और तीसरी चीज़ समझ लें कि बायोटिक पार्ट है कि रूट्स हो सकती है, माइक्रोब हो सकते हैं, एनिमल्स हो सकते हैं, या ऐसी चीज़ें. लेकिन थिंक फॉर द टाइम बीइंग these dead things which are water and air. So either water would be there or air would be there. कोई भी soil which does not allow the water to move, which retains water, that would always be oxygen deficient. इसकी एग्जांपल आप इस तरह ले लें कि इसमें हवा होती है कि नहीं होती है. आप थोड़ा सा पानी ले लें, सॉइल ले लें, गिलास में डालें, उसको कंपैक्ट ना करें ज़्यादा, पानी डालें तो आपको बबल्स नज़र आएंगे. ये बबल्स कहाँ से आए? इवन सॉइल के ऊपर अगर आप पानी डालते हैं, फ्लो वगैरह आपने किया हुआ है, गोडी की हुई है गमलों में, तो बबल्स कम अप. दीज bubble come up because now water is moving down and that is pushing the air. So air means oxygen deficiency would be there. Sandy soils are well aerated soil because of high percentage of macropores. Then there is another phenomena, aggregated soil particles, aggregation of soils, clay soils, बड़े fine particles होते हैं. Fine particles, they definitely are would not give you a good soil. They would give you a तो के मंगवाई मटा soil, clay soil, गाची जिसको कहते हैं उर्दू में. So that would reduce the aeration, that would reduce the mobility of the water. But then there is another phenomena. These smaller particles, you can see in this diagram that the brown spots, grains, they are individual particles. So particles, they get aggregated due to mucilaginous substances, due to organic matter, due to the activity of the microbes, they get aggregated, and aggregated particles. The aggregated particles have they behave like coarse particles. They consist of many small particles, but they combined in form of aggregate. अब ये जो aggregate cells हैं, they provide spaces. अब देखें कि spaces are there. They reduce water holding capacity, improve aeration, more porous like coarse particles. So this is another way that would help clay soils to become porous. Clay soils, especially non-aggregated soils, they since gaseous exchange is poor, oxygen is poor, but microbes may be there, roots may be there, they become carbon dioxide toxic. Carbon dioxide would be there, it cannot move out, it cannot dissolve. So carbon dioxide toxicity occurs, oxygen deficiency occurs, poor gaseous exchange occurs, and it is a limiting factor, especially waterlogged soil. ये waterlogged soil आप देखें, they are not good soil, although water is there, but plants do not grow. Salt they are retained there. Salinity then arises. So carbon dioxide toxicity is there. In a logged soil, abnormal conditions occur. Sulfate change to sulfite, nitrates change to ammonical form. So they are harmful. Effect on soil structure. Soil structure is an arrangement of various soil separates or particles in a soil sample. Arrangement of the particles. These particles, they are not haphazard in a soil sample. They have their own arrangement. छोटे बड़े पार्टिकल अरेंज होते हैं जिससे कि वो जो टेक्सचर है उससे मुख्तलिफ चीज़ बनती है जिसको हम स्ट्रक्चर कहते हैं. So structure depends upon texture. Large particles have wide pores in between them, making macropores. Within these small spaces are adjusted smaller particles. Such an arrangement improves qualities of the water. That is, macroparticles, macropores, sandy soil, clay soil, organic matter, they are provided to the soil, so they fill up the wider pores. They fill up the wide gaps. The gaps become reduced, so moves towards suitability. In fine textured soil, particles make aggregates that behave like coarse textured soil. Just I said, fine texture is not, clay soil is not a good soil because of limitation of water, limitation of gaseous exchange, limitation of root penetration or other such problems are there. So good soil नहीं है. लेकिन वो क्या करते हैं aggregation. They make aggregates. That aggregates, as I have explained in the previous slide, that they become like coarse particles. Aggregate soils, though composed of fine particles, acquire the properties of coarse soils. Organic matter, microorganisms, roots, rhizoids, fungal hyphae, bacterial things, mucilaginous substances, these improve soil aggregation. This is an example. You can see the diagram. That is a single particle is there. These particles aggregate and soil aggregation. This is one aggregate particle. So soil aggregation occurs. You can, in this one aggregate, there are 5 aggregates in the next picture, and these 5 aggregates have micropores in the aggregate, and in between the two aggregate particles there are macropores. Soil becomes a little bit porous and intermediate than the clay. Well aggregated soils are resistant to erosion. They provide good habitats for growth of microbes and plants. Because क्यों? Improved water holding capacity है, good aeration है, better nutrient availability है, suitable decay activity है, microbes की population अच्छी है. एक और बात इसमें मैं बता दूं कि ये जादुई है कि ये अगर आप ऑर्गेनिक मैटर सैंड में ऐड करते हैं वो उसे इम्प्रूव करेगा, उसकी वाटर होल्डिंग कैपेसिटी अच्छी हो जाएगी. अगर इसको क्ले में डालते हैं then again the water holding capacity would become a better. दोनों हालतों में I leave it to you what happens. Same organic matter in two different soils. In one case it reduces the bad qualities of the clay soil, it makes it porous. In the other case, sandy soil, bad qualities that is it has a macropores, it reduces size of the macropores. So अब इस पे आप सोचिए क्या बात है इसमें. टेम्परेचर भी का रोल भी मैक्रो ऑर्गेनिक मैटर या एग्रीगेट सॉइल्स पे ही डिपेंड करता है. कोर्स और सैंडी सॉइल गेन हीट इजीली शुगर ज़र तवदीगी and loses heat easily. ज़र तवदीगी, ज़र गर्मीगी, ज़र यखीगी, ज़र प्रीदी. Clay soil, it takes time, it will take more time to become warmer, but once the source is removed, it would take more time to lose heat. सैंडी डेजर्ट्स में यही फिनोमिना रोल प्ले करता है. दिन को the sand becomes very high at a high temperature, but as soon as the sun drops, sun sets, the soil becomes cool and then dew formation occurs. Extreme diurnal range is in the sandy environment. Why? Because sandy soils have high macropores, free gas exchange, poor water contents. Clay soils have high micropores, poor gas exchange, high water content. Poor water content, high water content. Free gas exchange, poor gas exchange. High macropores, high micropores. इन दोनों को आप कंपेयर करें. This affects the soil temperature. Soil moisture affects soil temperature. This is another way. Soil moisture affects. समर में आप देखें कि व्हाट वी डू, चड़काऊ को मुंग पसैन के गोली के फर्श के चश्मा का लगाया खश because of water. So dry soil becomes warmer earlier than the wet. If two soils are there of the same nature, let's say sandy soil or even clay soil, so if they are dry, they would become warmer than its comparable wet. Wet sand, dry sand. Dry sand become warmer. Wet sand become warmer a little bit later. When it comes to the loss of the heat from dry soil would be very quicker. From moist soil, it would be slow. So the same thing is for all kind of soil, that is the clay, sandy, silt or loam. Or diurnal ranges, they are narrow in wet soils. Diurnal ranges. Diurnal range means day temperature, night temperature. They are wide in the sandy soils because quick heat occurs. Clay में slow heat, slow loss occurs. So एकदम ज़ीरो पे नहीं आएगा, कम नहीं होगा. वो टाइम फैक्टर है जी कि टाइम ज़्यादा लग गया उसको गर्म होने में, ठंडे होने में भी उसको ज़्यादा टाइम लगेगा. सो वो जो डिफरेंस है हाई और लो टेम्परेचर का between the day and night, that would be slow or wide depending upon the moisture and texture. Sandy doesn't show wide diurnal range variation in soil temperatures because of the quick gain and loss of heat. Deserts have a very high day temperature, but nights are very cool. I have been to Cholistan Desert so many times. Day temperature is unbelievable, harsh, non-bearable. Night temperature, we used to take blanket. Same. So deserts have a high, sandy deserts, they have more high and low, wide range. Clay or fine textures, soils show narrow diurnal range, as I explained to you. Effect on soil fertility. Soil texture also affects fertility. अब ये जो soil fertility है, nutrients whether natural nutrients हैं, organic matters हैं or they are added commercial fertilizers, it is the retention. Which soil would retain it for a longer duration? Clay soil or a sandy soil? अगर clay soil has high percentage of micropores, so जिस तरह के micropores they retain moisture, और ये जो nutrients होते हैं they are retained in solution form, not in a dry form. So solution form में होंगे तो if moisture is retained तो nutrients are retained. If moisture is lost, it drains away, runs away, nutrients are lost. Clay soil retain more nutrients around the particles and the angles in between them. Angles से मतलब कि वो जो pore space है. Sandy soil में आप डाल दें, थोड़ी देर बाद या 2 दिनों बाद वो कमर्शियल फर्टिलाइज़र ख़त्म हो जाएगा। ये sandy soils have poor retention of nutrients. Again, two figures are there. I have taken them from some books or articles. You can see in the brown one, lot of larger spaces are there. Water or nutrients in the form of a solution can drain away easily because total pore volume is high. इसमें आप देखें total pore volume या less porosity is there. Pores are less but wide. In the other case, pores are more but narrow. So, large non-colloidal particles, less surface area, wide pores, total low porosity, high percentage of micropores. These are the reasons which cause a change between the retention capability of the nutrients of a micro type of a soil, clay soil or a sandy soil. वाटर मूवमेंट किस में ज़्यादा होगी? सही बात है कि आप देखें कि पानी के अंदर सैंड के अंदर अगर पानी कैन फाइंड स्पेस दैट वुड मूव इजीली. In this diagram, there's a fine sand, there's a coarse sand. Fine sand में you can see lot of gaps, larger particles, or fine sand में particles are more or small pores are there. So movement of water, loss of water, drainage of water, infiltration of water, yeah, movement of water downwards or lateral, that would be more in a coarse textured soil, sandy soil. Thank you very much, gentlemen. These two lectures which I go, they are overlapping with each other. These features you can use there if you are asked to say, write the characteristic of a sandy soil or qualities of a loam soil or clay soil. So you can intermix them.